compare apples to oranges. It means to compare two things that cannot be compared. You can't compare your job as a nurse to mine as an engineer. That's comparing apples to oranges.
How do you compare apples to oranges? Actually, I think I have some props here. So they asked me to do it. Okay, so you want to compare apples and oranges, right? How do you compare it? Right?
We're gathering additional data. We're building a much larger data set that includes control groups, so we'll be able to compare apples and oranges. But historically, this belief that learning to code will help you in math class has not been true.
John, your new book came out. It's amazing, by the way. Love the new book. But you were doing an NPR plug for the book, and this lady asked you the question. You were certainly not trying to compare apples and oranges, but she said...
And I want to illustrate this with a very interesting graphic that was published in the Journal of Irreproducible Results, which is a comparison of apples and oranges. People say you can't compare apples and oranges, but in fact, you have to compare apples and oranges. If you want to understand the broader category of fruit, you have to compare apples and oranges. In fact, you'd also want to compare bananas and even tomatoes, which legally are vegetables, but biologically they're fruits. You want to compare them all.
So if a, no offense, super duper duper old woman is competing with an 18-year-old with a high metabolism for pies, there is something seriously wrong. I mean, just don't compare apples and oranges, especially saucy apples with old, decrepit, ancient, mean oranges.
The big difference here is you have a meeting that took place versus millions of dollars being sent to create fake information to actually influence the election. You compare those two, those are apples and oranges. What the Clinton campaign did, what the DNC did, was actually exchange money. They took a meeting. Those are far different, and one is pretty common practice in any campaign to take a meeting. The other one is actually paying money for false information. That's a big deal and a big difference.
Compare a low-budget movie on sci-fi with something like Avatar. It's apples to oranges.
Now, this is apples and oranges to compare the number of people who have died following measles vaccine with the number of people who have died following measles.